So for me, really, doing a smart city and doing a smart living would be clean energy, separation of waters, and like the important things. And at the end, it can be important, those sensors that make street lighting more efficient. But if our plans of doing energy are not efficient, what does it matter that one light it is? I don't know.
Okay, so that's a very pointed view, which is good to define your position. You also say that for you the cities are smart when the streets are active, and this is people moving around 24 hours a day. Poor people, do they ever sleep, or how do you consider sleep on the street?
Well, maybe this conception is very influenced by Jane Jacobs, could be. But for me, that is smart. No? Like, I live in Barcelona, and the neighborhoods that are livable and people in the streets, even at night, always somebody is passing. No, it's not that city. For me, that it's okay, and it's like it's nice to live there, and it's safe for the people. And when we are in these other neighborhoods that are dead most of the time, for me, that's not smart. Simply.
Great. So that's a good explanation. So here you gave some cities to this where it applies. Aspen, Colorado, that have goals to be on 100% renewable energy, because you saw that as a big problem in the performance of the city, or make them smarter than they are now. Then the island of Bonaire, the Caribbean, Munich by 2025, San Diego by 2035, and San Francisco by 2020. Then you point out the problem with the water. Maybe you can focus on that a bit more.
Exactly. For me, the water is also very important in being smart, no? Because it is a super big effort to take the water from the natural environment, to clean that water, to take it to the network on the water pipes, to flush the water out, and then a lot of water is being wasted and is going to the sea. Like, it's nonsense. It's a lot of energy, effort, and water that we are not using, no? So only by separating like gray waters and black waters, we will be able to recycle a lot of water that now it's going away. No, the gray water, the water like when you clean your hands or when you shower, it's not bad. Like you could use it for something. And at least in Spain, by law, architects are like it's compulsory to separate the waters. But then at the end, they like put them together to the same pipe, because the streets are not still don't have the infrastructure to separate. So for me, that would be very smart. So in this case, I was saying, okay, let's see what are the cities that have better renewable energies, no? Or that cities that have a goal to have 100% renewable energy. For example, San Diego, between others. And then from those cities, is there any that is also caring for water recycling? Apparently San Diego. But then when you go to see what are the actual projects, I don't trust that much. Like, they still have non-renewable energy plants, and the separation of water is very, I don't know, like recycling apart for some purposes, but like not very generally or not very thoughtful, I think.
Right, so water is definitely not a little button at the top of the dam, but it is one of the leaking parts at the bottom. So for you, there's still no smart city, really. And then you give your personal definition, which is quite interesting: connected and dynamical system with flexibility and resilience to actively adapt to as well as regulate the various in and external changes, and in this way able to continuously improve itself, growing for its inhabitants. I think this is very, very important, continuously improve itself and growing for its inhabitants. So that makes it almost a counterpart to a totally top-down, hierarchically run city. The characters: smart living, smart control, smart economy, smart mind, smart environment. So these are all kind of characters that you gave, and then you give the 5 cases. Sorry, this is Mr. Liu. Oh, Mr. Liu. Sorry, it was too fast. This is the Mr. Liu. Is he here? She here? You. Yes. Would you like to say something maybe about this continuously improving itself, growing, how you would achieve that? How would you think that could be achieved?
I think at first we have the sensors infrastructure the man use this to this kind to sorry we might use this infrastructure to regulate the performance on the activities of the city and update we can get the feedbacks on the big data from these regulations then to use these data to make the regulation of the city even much better, and that's so. That's
okay. Thank you. So this is a counterexample almost. We had two diverting parts of the exercise. Daniel Grego identified that quite nicely. So one part would be the more centered on the human behavior side of the city, and the other one's more on the technological side of making a city smart. And so you are stronger on these characteristics with these sensors that can be implanted and can be used for each one of these, measuring each one of these smart aspects. The 5 cases, these are the ones that I was really interested in. Interesting, although you start with sensors, he takes your hometown and says this is a good example for that. Huh? So this is, but this we will find. We'll find that many cities, they're not only smart in one sense, but they are smart in many senses. So that makes it much more graspable. So the bus network, the smart traffic lights. So this is really also quite that you can do with technology. Then he has Santa Cruz as an example. Again, technology, monitoring. Stockholm, IT economy, again, very much on technology focused. But also, here we have a collaboration from university, industry, and government to get itself always updated. So this is one way to update the city. And then the Airbnb sharing community also as a worldwide smart city, also technology-based application. And Copenhagen, a climate-resilient city as an example. And then he's focusing on Copenhagen, how they deal with water, with wireless data, and so on. So this is a very strong statement for technology to be used to make a city smarter. And for me, it's quite fascinating how differently you can read those cities. As you were writing probably this exercise last week, I was in Copenhagen giving a talk in the morning and looking at these different aspects that you described, but you could have many more aspects that are making Copenhagen a really smart city, not only now, but also in the future. And then you put the big question in the end, is a smart city necessarily related to modern technology? Is that your conclusion, or is it where you, after you had done all the technology studies, was that the question?
Just an additional question, an additional point to this exercise presentation.
Yes. Very good. I think very necessary question. You gave an old example from Egypt, where all this flood control was done centuries ago. Unfortunately, it's not so readable, but it's a very good example. And then you say smart cities, everything but merely high-tech methods. So you come to the conclusion that it is also quite something different. And this one, of course, many of you might know this movie, Her. You have seen it, about this operating system where you can really start thinking, is that how a person will work in the future, or how a city will work in the future. So this is really quite a good example for that. Thank you. Then we have a very crisp presentation, short, precise presentation. Gail Zuber, are you here?
He arrived soon, I think.
Yeah?
He arrived soon, I think. He told me he was late.
Ah, okay. So it starts with a question mark already. That is quite interesting.
He's here.
Herr Zuber, you are just in time here. We are just talking about your exercise. Okay, so you gave your personal definition for the smart city, a city of which the organization is capable of managing efficiently the needs for his inhabitants and which is reactive in any event. So that is your definition. Then you go into examples. And these examples made me wonder, because I don't quite see a total match between your definition and the examples. You missed the discussion we just had before, but that's when we talked about these different aspects of technologically managing a city, making it look smart, versus having the people make a city smart, or combinations of those. So this is the project of King Abdallah Economic City. So it is planned to be a smart city at the edge of the desert, a very, very large city. Better known probably is this city here, Mazda City. Has somebody been there lately? Or have you been there lately?
No.
No? Okay, I would recommend to go there without using CO2. I don't know how that will be possible, because that is the idea of this city. But it is supposed to be a smart city, and in the center of it is the Master Institute of Technology. I've been there before, and unfortunately it doesn't look like this. It is not completed. But maybe in the future it could be reaching that. Tianjin Eco City, how did you find that one? You were just looking for smart cities or for eco cities?
How I found that?
Yeah.
Well, it was a documentary about new urbanism, a new city, and yeah, the project for this city was to make a lot of green space and to use new technologies to be more ecologic and things like that.
It's very good that you can found it this way and have this description why it should be smart, but it's also very important to actually go there and check how it is or how the plans are developing. The same for Songdo in South Korea, the new city being built with the specific idea of making it a smart city. Has anyone been there? We talked about this in the first lecture. Huh? Yes. So that's the other one. And then the campus of EPF Lausanne. Finally something where you've been, right?
Yes, exactly.
So tell us, what is smart about it? This is good.
Well, there is different thing. There was two main aspects. One is the student card. With this card, we can pay at the Mensa and use this to open all the door. And yes, so main access to the campus. And also the aspect of security. There is a security service who we can call. And yeah, they are more able to do the security in the campus as the police or the emergency of the city. Mm-hmm. So it's a special service.
So you focus your smartness, smart definition on these aspects of security, safety, finance, paying, and so on. Yes. Okay. And then Chandigarh, you also mentioned Chandigarh, which is started to be built in 1951, and which is by now has about 4 times the number of inhabitants that it was planned to have. Have you been there also? No? By Le Corbusier planned in a 1-2 week effort, supposedly. And some of the buildings that have been erected in the government part of it are world-renowned, so you will see them and recognize them quite well. But the original plans, which were made, as I said, in a very short time, then have been overtaken by the actual development of the whole population and the region. And the plan to have this as the capital was not realized, and that changed in the whole development of the city. So here you have the smart planning, speed of transportation, green areas. I would like to go into detail with each one of you, but it just explodes the framework here. We can do that separately. Smart city is a city which knows how to adapt itself to the needs of its occupants as an object endowed with life. I think this is something that we see already in the first exercise, in the second, and in the third, and that is somehow continuous. So there must be something very important about this. Jonas Landolt, are you here? Jonas Landolt. So you give your definition. You set them in quotes. What does it mean? You copied it from somewhere? Or
no.
This is your quote?
It's my quote.
Okay, this is good. So you quote yourself. This is something I saw in many cases. If you copy and paste something, please do put the source directly underneath. And if you make it yourself, then you don't have to quote it. So this is very good. So you can put your name here. And the key features, the use of renewable energy, intelligent, adequate architectural design, improve the quality of life and the security for inhabitants, the long-term sustainability and adaptability, low and high-tech measures to improve the smartness of the city, and financially beneficial in the long term. That's also quite important. And then you give examples. Also, you choose Mazda City. Have you been there?
No.
Okay, so this is, I don't want to say everybody has to go there. But many of these things were planned, advertised in this way, and then you always have to compare how they are realized. Then the other example you give also Copenhagen. Have you been there?
No.
No? Okay, I mean this
Yeah.
this I can confirm. This is really happening this way as it is supposed to be. And then you focus again on Mazda City. Actually, this space in Mazda City here with this tower, which is supposed to suck in the air from the streets around and move them up, and this way create a draft which cools down or gives the feeling of coolness. This part is actually built and actually working quite well. And the other parts, as you can see out here, the city should continue, but it's not built there yet. So you don't know how this will work, if it will work when the rest of the city is built as well. But this is only one of the key features. And then you give the explanation how it's supposed to work. And again, here we can discuss that in as many levels of depth as you wish afterwards. Okay, thank you. And then Sunju Kim, you did also smart city definition. Can you say a few words on your point 1, maybe?
Point 1?
Yes. Why a city has to be smart? Why a city has to be smart?
I think that comes first, and how it can be smart. I mean, it's the question of whether we need, why we need technology, and where can we use, where can we make a use for it. And I think it's whole civilization and we build a city is somehow we achieve the common goal of through the technology. And I think smart city need to sort of represent the goal of it.
Very good. And I also like that you made sketches. It's very good. So this is from you, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to quote it. And there you also quote yourself. This is very good. Then you give examples here. And also show, sorry, that slide is screwed up.
It's just the alignment is.
Yeah, the alignment is screwed up. Yeah, because there you have made a very nice diagram how these things fit together. Yes, and then you give the example of Seoul as a networked city. And you say what makes Seoul smart is what flows in the city. Information, transportation, and people. Does it mean everything that doesn't flow, everything that's stuck is not smart, or?
It's a different aspect of what is being smart in the city. And in terms of like energy efficiency or renewable energy or like a building, so I cannot say it's very smart, but what flows is smart. That's
okay. Okay. Very good. Good. And then we come to the second last, Miro. Roman, he has worked on a book with others for a long time together on the quantum city, so he has a big oeuvre of work already he can draw from. You put the question differently. Maybe you can say, you turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to open up the question of a smart city or any city. So usually it goes around this kind of technologies, optimization, and this kind of stories. But so what if we say a city is a mood, a genre, a brand, or what if we say we have cities are about complicated pleasures or things like this? These kind of things are very difficult to be quantified in a way. And then like cities are where the gods are born, so you have a kind of a concept of culture. And then let's say, for instance, with sustainability, livability, optimization, and control, it's very fixed. Because if you want to optimize something, you have to know exactly what you are optimizing. And these kind of things are always super defined way of looking at the specific point of the city. But the idea of the book and the idea which I'm interested in is to open up. So like cities are places of comedy, tragedy, drama, irony, these kind of stories.
Good. Thank you. And then you give examples when what you found on the web for smart cities, and that doesn't really satisfy you, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's really, if that is the image of a smart city, then we could say, okay, that's it, it's done. So we just build it, finished. Yeah. But you say there's more to it, and then you go into the quote or the attack or whatever on this quote of Kohlhaas.
I mean, I'm not anti-technology guy, so I like technologies, but I think we should take these kind of thoughts very seriously. So, for instance, that we are exchanging these values of liberty, equality, and fraternity with values of like comfort, security, and sustainability. So, I mean, we don't want our cities to be boring. Actually, we want them to be a kind of an adventurous place. So, I think this is a very, very crucial point. And I mean, it's a great text, so I recommend to everyone just to, if you want to think about what might be some problems. But the problem with Kohlhaas here is that it's too sarcastic, so there is no way out of this. So I think that's a problematic part.
So you make very large images to
yeah, I mean, the idea was to usually with this kind of, when you are looking at the rankings of smart cities, there are like 5 or 4 features which are dominant. So the idea was, how can we think of a city if we take any feature?
Right.
So this is something that maybe the data-driven approach or this kind of information technology approach might be about to reinvent how we can discuss about cities with technology.
Thank you. And that also could go into deep discussion. I recommend to talk to Miro directly. He will tell you much more about it. And then in the end, Raventos Ferrer, you here? Actually, you make your definitions, of course. All this is fine and good. But then you go back and you say something very interesting. You're back in history. And now only in the 19th century, 20th century, when people started to dig away all the ashes and the stones and so on, it comes out again. It becomes a stock. But now time is starting to make impact, and all the buildings start to degrade until they are really try to maintain them at in a state that you can still recognize them. There's a normal time-dependent flow of stocks and materials in the city. A modern example, stocks and flows of energy and material, we have here in Zurich, of course. Now it's a different flow of energy. This is temporary energy, temporary material like wood. That's a natural material growing all the time that you can make buildings of, but they will go away. If Pompeii had been made only of wood, you wouldn't see anything today. But because it was of stone, you see something. Or this one also, stock and flow, energy and materials, shows very important the connection between making plans and execution. So this is from an old, very old church in Naples. You have here the monks deciding on what to build. You know, the people, the founders of monasteries and cities were often monastic cultures. So they decide what to be built. And then, on the other hand, you have material being drawn into where the city is. On the other side, you take local materials, you make chalk, and with those you start to make concrete, add water, and then from this you can build the city. So you have like a constant, nice representation of the stocks and flows from thinking all the way to making the beginnings of a city. And of course, you can do that in any dimension, like here in Singapore. But here, if you do it in the third dimension very strongly, then definitely then space and density, the stocks and flows of space and density become important. So many Chinese villages that were villages, let's say in the city of Shenzhen, where we'll have the big exhibition starting in December, which was more or less a fishing town, relatively low density, through the addition of high-rise buildings, densification, this density space has also become a stock and a flow. And if the buildings go away, density drops, and then you have another situation. And stocks and flows of transportation and information are, of course, extremely important. Those are the ones that we do here in this chair. That's what our expertise is in. And here we can see people who have done that and who are doing this is from the Value Lab downstairs, and where we can even translate information as a virtual entity into a physical entity that we see here, representing the wind flows. All of this work is done in the Future Cities Lab in Singapore, and I give you very few examples of how these stocks and flows are used. Each one of those lines here, these are the stocks and flows: space, energy, materials, people, capital, water, and information. And there you have a few. Just think what kind of stocks and flows could be involved in that one. Here, definitely, what would it be? Stocks and flows of what?
Energy.
Energy, sure. Sure. Energy also could be density, because if you do that too many places, nobody wants to go there anymore. It will change. This here is stocks and flows of material, of course. Very, very sophisticated. Also here at ETH. Kamatsu Kola. Stocks and flows of material as well, but new materials, bamboo. Dirk Hebel and his group. Somebody in his studio here? No? But on your way out, they are right here behind the screen. So this is their chair. So you can learn everything about this. Stocks and flows of housing, of people, in buildings, stocks and flows of material. That is a very, very important one. As you can see from this example, one part of Singapore here, between 1846 and 2008, how the same space has changed in terms of building occupation of the site, but it doesn't tell you much because the third dimension is missing. So in 2008, it looks less dense than in the 70s, but in reality, it's much denser than in the 70s because of the third dimension. And what does this to the individual spaces in here, which suddenly has been replaced with something like that, that you can imagine? For this, you have to go there and check it out yourself. Also, stocks and flows of density, case Christianse, and of city planning. You can see here the same size excerpts from cities, Singapore, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Bangkok. So that's definitely expression of stocks and flows of density and space. Also here, urban sociology, the density in the world. You can see here these red parts. These are the densest part of the world, Java, and then a few spots in Europe and the United States, only a few, South America. Africa coming up very much now in the next years. And this is, again, stocks and flows of population, of people and materials combined by Marc Angelil, and the stocks and flows of water. This is so important. As you mentioned, this water, which is flowing through Jakarta, the Ciliwung River, is completely polluted, but it doesn't have to be. It could be changed if it was not polluted in the upper part of the river, but in order to do that, you have to change the stock and flow of information, and you have to give people the opportunity to remove the junk in another way. So these things are highly interdependent, but in the end, they belong together. And finally, the stocks and flows of transportation, mobility. This is where smart cities very often come into play, and people think this is smart cities. It's a very important part of smart cities. Kai Axhausen, our colleague here from De Bauk, is an expert with his group on that. And here you can see.
Do you want to show the simulation?
If it should be running, right? You separate it. Where they show the stocks and flows of people, of cars, a simulation of people and cars in the city. Here you see the time running in the morning, and there you see all of Singapore. Now you see 6 o'clock in the morning. It gets very dense. Density increase. Traffic slows down. You have all kinds of traffic jams. And then you focus into certain areas of the city, and you see how the cars are going. This is not measurements. These are simulations, which you can verify then with measurements, and thus improve the quality of your simulation. So that's a real stock and flow of transportation. And when you park the car, then of course it becomes a stop. And you drive it again, it becomes a flow. This only shows the flow. If you would show all the stock of the cars standing around in the city, everything would be black. So this program is called MATSIM, a multi-agent transport simulation platform as a service. And this is what has been done for Singapore. Singapore trying to be a smart city. Some of you referred to Singapore as a smart city. And it's doing a lot to improve the transportation situation, and, which is important, to connect it to other stocks and flows in the city. Okay, I think we can stop it here. And we go to... Yeah, good. So we go to the summary. The content of your exercises has added new dimensions to smart cities definition. Congratulations to that, because it's really true. You have invented or found out many additional definitions, small pieces, to the standard definition of smart cities. This is very good. The topic is smart cities, but I found this was very surprising. Education, research almost never appeared in the criteria. Very few of you mentioned university. I showed it before. But you would think smart city has to do a lot with, I don't know, education or universities. But most of you focused on other things. What does it tell us? What's the meaning of that, you know? Are universities maybe not so smart, or you don't need universities for smart cities? Or is it so obvious that you didn't mention it? It's interesting because in your colleagues from previous years, when we looked at livable cities or cities as a whole, understanding cities, education and these type of services were very, very important. But here in the smart city, interestingly, not. It hasn't yet. So that really made me think. And also what jumped into my eye right away is that many of the cities that you selected as smart cities are the same ones that your colleagues from before have selected as livable cities or sustainable cities. So the circle, the overlap between the smart cities and the responsive cities and the livable cities and the sustainable cities seems to be very high. That's also quite surprising. Stocks and flows, they are a fundamental concept to understand cities. It's important that you know it. As I said, you can look it up more in the book or in the publication. Stocks and flows is a very important instrument also to understand the city. The second exercise that we'll send to you soon will focus on measurements supporting the definition of smartness and responsiveness. Because we can talk about many things qualitatively, I think we should also see if there is something quantitative that we can measure, that you can measure, to define or support your understanding of a city as smart. Do you have any questions so far? So we'll work on the exercise and send it to you probably at the latest by the end of the week. And then you have another 2 weeks' time to complete the exercise. Okay? So with that, thank you very much and see you again next time. Thank you.